Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. The other day I was listening to Professor Pervez Hoodbhoy's discussion on Pakistan's intrinsic and current problems and disadvantages. And that's why I have titled today's talk as Pervez Hoodbhoy and the National Confusion of Pakistan. Professor Saab asserts that Pakistan was born in a state of confusion, and that is the reason that we are living in an era or in a country of confusion. It is very unfortunate that the hurried scuttle, as called by Mountbatten and also his critics, the departure of the British from India as a state of confusion. We must appreciate the fact that on 20th February 1947, it was announced by the British Prime Minister Clement Attlee that power in India will be handed over to responsible Indian hands by June 1948. So, what was anticipated as, what was planned as a departure in June 1948 was narrowed down, was brought closer to 14th or 15th August 1947. So, of course, it was a hurried scuttle, it was a hurried departure of the British from the Indian subcontinent, and of course, the partition of India, which was finalized in terms of constitutional aspects in June 1947. So, all Muhammad Ali Jinnah that Professor Saab prefers to refer to Quaid-i-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah as, we need to address Quaid-i-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah as Quaid-i-Azam rather than, it doesn't actually make us tall when we refer to Quaid-i-Azam as Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And it was actually, as a matter of principle, 1 month and 12 or 13 days, because the 3 June plan was then finalized and it was formalized on July 20th, 1947 in the form of the Government of India Act 1947 to be read with Government of India Act 1935. So, the constitutional amendment was made before the creation of Pakistan, almost like only 25 to 26 days before the actual event took place. So, there were difficulties, there were confusions, but those confusions were not of Pakistan's founding fathers' making. They were like the circumstances which made or which encouraged Mountbatten or the British to withdraw not in June 1948 but much earlier than that, almost a year or 10 months before that. And Professor Saab then refers to the basis of Pakistan, the foundations of Pakistan as articulated by Quaid-i-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Number one, he says that his emphasis or the emphasis of the leaders of the freedom movement or the partition movement or the Pakistan movement were they emphasized on 2 aspects: hostilities between Hindus and Muslims. Professor Saab himself has admitted that the current political dispensation of India under the BJP's government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi has justified it to some extent. He finds it justifiable only because almost 70 years or slightly less than 70 years after the event took place, and an event or a phenomena justified it in 2012 or 2010. That is not the case. Situation in pre-1947 was far worse than it is today as caused by the BJP. Professor Saab probably does not link the factor of hostilities between the Muslims and the Hindus in the Indian subcontinent to pre-partition or the partition events, because he thinks that then it was a secular political party, Indian national, probably he thinks, I cannot attribute to him what he has not said, that the Indian National Congress was a secular dispensation or political organization. But I think we do not need to forget Vallabhbhai Patel, who was as good as a BJP current Hindu far-right ideologues. The second basis of the partition of India, as articulated by Muhammad Ali Jinnah in the words of Hoodbhoy, Muslims were a nation. And he thinks that this philosophy, this ideology was drowned in the Bay of Bengal, as had been said by Indira Gandhi in 1971 when Bangladesh came into being. It will be very unfair that an ideology, the separatist ideology that had been materialized in 1947, is considered to be defeated in 1971 because East Pakistan separated from the rest of Pakistan and emerged as Bangladesh. That is not true. And if it is true, let's talk logically. If India was one nation, then a very huge portion of it, 26 to 27 to 28 or 25% of its population, did not want to live as one nation in India. So, from Pakistan, Bangladesh separated. Therefore, Pakistan's national identity or claim to nationhood is put in question by Professor Saab. But then he does not realize, maybe he does realize, but he ignores the fact that Pakistan and Bangladesh, two entities actually separated from the Indian nation in 1947. Therefore, this argument would not necessarily hold very sound sway. And then he says that because there are troubles in Balochistan, or because Bangladesh emerged, Pakistan is not a nation. Pakistan was, of course, not a nation before 1947. But in 1947, Pakistan did emerge as a nation, and it was a nationalist, Muslim nationalist movement that brought Pakistan into existence. There is trouble, there is discontent, there is maybe dissatisfaction in Pakistan's areas like Balochistan, but these Sir has mentioned. And he says that PTM leadership, including Manzoor Pashtun and the rest of them, are behind bars. I'm not sure if he is behind bars. Maybe this video dates back to some earlier times when he had been sent behind the bars for whatever reasons. Maybe these days, like under 16 MPO, maintenance of public order, Nandesha Nakshaman, 3 MPO or whatever, 2 MPO, people are sent behind bars. It's debatable whether it is right or wrong, but people do go behind bars under the laws which exist in this country, which existed in this country during the British and after the British, and that does not actually, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto from Sindh was sent behind the bars and he was even hanged, but that does not mean that Pakistan's claim to nationhood was put in question or challenged. Now, if it was not, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's name reminds me of the fact that there is this gentleman who is from Sindh and he wins the National Assembly elections and becomes the Prime Minister of the rest of Pakistan, the post-1971 Pakistan, and then in 1977 again won those questionable elections. And then we saw Prime Ministers from Balochistan, we saw Prime Ministers from Punjab, we saw Prime Ministers from Sindh, and presidents from KPK, Punjab, and etc., etc. So that means that this particular discontent in Balochistan cannot cannot be made a cause of belief that Pakistan is not one nation. And then he says that there is more than one kind of Muslims of Pakistan. No, it is not. There is diversity, there is variety, there are sects, there are minorities. We can, of course, say that minorities need even more careful or humane treatment than is meted out. But that is a societal attitude or governmental policy, which it's not a matter of policy, but execution of it, which can be improved. There is no question that things do not deserve or do not warrant improvement. And he says that the promised utopia betrayed, but because Jinnah never wrote a single research paper. This question and an essay. This question is very interesting. This, Professor Saab has raised this question in terms of Allama Iqbal, where I very humbly submitted that Allama Iqbal had authored many research papers. And about Quaid-i-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he says that he did not write a single essay. The speeches of Jinnah, the statements of Quaid-i-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, his speeches in the Bombay Legislative Council on the Muslim inheritance law, they are as good as a research paper to be publishable in any journal of repute on constitutionalism, political theory or political science or human rights or even religious studies for that matter. And he did write an essay, and that was the Muslim community. And then reference to Muslims first and Indian letter. Yes, Professor Saab has referred that before 12th August 1947, Quaid-i-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah said that you are Muslims first and Indians later. But on 12th August he said that you are Pakistanis first and you are Muslims later. So there is no contradiction in these two statements. There was a movement for the establishment of a country which had the Muslims in majority, but then of course was inhabited also by a reasonable, sizable or like some minorities. So Quaid-i-Azam wanted to emphasize that of course we came into being on the ideology of two-nation theory, but then that should not influence our tolerant attitude towards the minorities, Hindus, Sikhs, Christians, and etc., etc. He promised that Pakistan will be a Muslim country, Professor Saab said. So what is wrong with that? He did not say anything wrong. He said that this will be a country for the Muslims of India where they can give expression to their talent, their feelings, their ideas, and where they can live lives of their choice. And it's everybody's fundamental human right to live the life of one's human choice. He had no idea of the future of Pakistan. He said that Quaid-i-Azam's attention was drawn to the fact that what will be Pakistan like? What will be the constitutional shape of Pakistan? So there is nothing wrong with that. Quaid-i-Azam was very clear on that. Quaid-i-Azam was asked whether it will be a parliamentary form of government, whether it will be a presidential form of government, whether it will be an Islamic kind of polity, or it will be a secular state or whatever. Quaid-i-Azam said that it is not for me to decide. It is for the people of Pakistan and their chosen representatives who will decide as to what form of statehood and government they would want to acquire or adopt. But Quaid-i-Azam had, of course, a very obvious preference towards parliamentary form of government. That actually derived partial essence from the 1935 Act, Government of India, which of course offered limited powers to the Governor General, the title which preceded the title of the President. Okay. The next thing was whether there will be Jagirdari and what about Federation and Confederation. Pakistan was to be a federation. Pakistan did emerge as a federation, but for a very short time. Between 1956 to 1971 or 70, during the period that we had one unit, even then it was a it apparently was a unitary form of government, but it was a federal form of government where this federation aspect, of course, is challengeable. But after the passing of the 18th Amendment, there is no question of the residuary powers being vested in the provinces. So it is a very delicate, a very nice, and a very impressive form of federation that Pakistan has been able to develop into or evolve into over the years. About Jagirdari, I think Quaid-i-Azam was very clear that he was not in favor of Jagirdari, but that was to be decided not by Quaid-i-Azam's mind, but by the people of Pakistan. Pakistan should champion the economic and social uplift of the people of Pakistan. Now, who would like to challenge? This is true for any country in the world, to champion the social development, the cultural development, the economic development, and the political, educational development or scientific development of a country. And Hoodbhoy has said that countries do survive without ideologies. He has mentioned two countries especially. One is Holland and the other is Japan. And he says that Holland does not have an ideology, Japan does not have an ideology, but they are prospering, they are welfare states. How would we think that there are countries who do not have ideologies? Holland does have an ideology. It is Kahn's societal state. That means that society takes precedence, individual takes precedence over society and society over the state. So it does have an ideology, and there are political parties there. One is the liberal conservatives and the other is the ruling party, the coalition that actually focuses on democracy and the principles of freedom. America does have an ideology that is called freedom and democracy. Then Japanese nationalism and ideologies do evolve. Like if Quaid-i-Azam's ideology of Muslim nationhood turning into Pakistani nationhood would characterize a similar form as the Japanese ideology. Japanese in post-closure in the pre-closure 1945 World War, they had this expansionist ideology to spread the goodness of their culture, of their progress around the world. After the 1945 misfortunes that they came across in 1945, they adopted the Japanese nationalism. So they do have a kind of an ideology, not a kind of a particular, a potent, a substantive ideology where the Japanese nation comes first in their list of priorities. So the purpose of this discussion is that not only emphasizing the negatives of Pakistan genesis, Pakistan's foundations, Pakistan's creation, the limitations that the founding fathers of Pakistan worked in, and characterizing all these things in negative form will not serve any purpose. But to some it does. I'm not sure what purpose does that serve. I thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.